Kind of want to rummage through your stuff.
We're live, by the way, for Absolute AppSec episode number 18, where you're joined by Chris Gates tonight.
Woo-hoo. How's it going?
And Seth Law, co-host of Absolute AppSec.
Like always, welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having me.
No, we're really glad. So for those that don't know, Chris and I live like real close to each other, so he was able to come over tonight and it was
a 7-hour flight. I'm really tired, totally jet lagged. Here we go.
Special for everyone watching.
That's okay. He can give you a sticker, Chris, so it's totally worth it.
Sweet, have stickers. I forgot about that. Yeah, so typically the way we kick this off, and I'm about to just make sure that we have, like, I've got this up and running, make sure everybody knows we're going live. Okay, so Seth, you're going to watch for questions?
Yep, I got it.
All right, cool. Right, so first way we typically start this is to ask you about your origin story, your background. It's a little weird because I know some of these things about you already. Yeah. So, but yeah, if you could tell people basically how you got in the security industry.
Oh, I'll have to do. All right, I'll do the clean version. The clean version.
You can do whichever version you want, man.
I don't know if I'm ready to drop all the deets. I don't know who's listening. West Point graduate, computer science major. It was an NT4 shop, and the solution to everything broken was to re-image your stuff. And so about time I said, I'm going to start figuring this out and try to fix my own damn computer. And that's how I got started. I didn't have like a TRS 80 or anything crazy. First time I touched a computer, I was in college. So I got a late start, I guess, compared to most people in the biz. Yeah, and then so computer science major. Then they did a hacking class at West Point. It was the thing you take senior year. Part of that was the cyber defense exercise.
What year was this?
See, I'm ancient. It's 2002.
That's pretty good to have a cyber.
Yeah, so they had it before CCDC was popular, and all the service academies did essentially what CCDC is, but it was just Merchant Marines, Army, Navy, and the Air Force Academy. And we would all compete against each other to see who would win, because that's what service academies do. Yeah, so did that, and then through a lovely set of synchronicities, I got to do an extra semester at school, and that extra semester, the teachers took me out to DEF CON 10. And so there I was, top of the Alexis Park, sweating my ass off.
In 2002?
2002. Dang. Yeah, listening to Bruce Potter talking about WEP and the Kraken WEP, and Jeremiah Grossman was talking about this weird thing called cross-site scripting. And everyone's like, what is this junk? It's dumb. And I was like,
attacks? What are those?
Yeah, I mean, it was brand new, right? And watching the CTF that was going on, and the crazy Chinese lady talking, and DomoCon, developers. You guys weren't even there.
No, I wasn't there. I have no
it's
idea.
like I knew that's what I wanted to do at that point. I was still kind of like not sure what I wanted to do. I had branched Signal, which is like communications for the Army, and so I was going to go do IT stuff, but I really didn't know that security was my thing until that summer in Vegas.
So DEF CON's pretty much where the interest started for you?
Yeah, I mean, I was interested, but that's where like I knew.
Oh.
Does that make sense? It probably makes sense.
Yeah,
right? I don't know.
If there was interest and then you're locked in.
I was like, these are my people. This is what I want to do. This is, I went war driving for the first time in Vegas and with people, and it was just, the winners ended up, and probably the really sums up the experience. We drove all around, and there was points for like unique ones, and then points for most. The people that won just wrote a script to generate fake access points and max, right? So like the epitome of DEF CON, and the transition you make as you do this for a long time of like maybe doing things by the book to understanding that hackers really just figure out the best and most efficient way to do it.
Yeah, definitely the most efficient, most
right. So,
way.
These people didn't even leave the building. They just coded something that made it. So amazing, right? So that's how I got started.
Nice.
No, that's interesting. I mean, that's one thing that was going around last week, right? Was the one true way to InfoSec. I don't know if you guys saw that on Twitter. That
Oh, I missed that one.
If it was like a Rat Rob or something like that, saying that you couldn't be a real security professional unless you spent some time either as a developer or as a IT support person.
Right? Oh, I did see that. Yeah, I mean, we could talk about that if you want.
I mean that's part of the reason why we talk to people about it, because I don't think we've run into anybody that's had I mean, I have a traditional kind of development background, but even then mine isn't like super extensive. I didn't spend 10 plus years as a developer. And
right.
I mean, you've got some development from the CS degree, right? I assume.
Yeah, I muddled through Ada.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah, no, I'd say
they're probably moving through some Java at that time, right?
They switched to Java after, but I did Ada and I muddled through it. It actually took me. I was doing this professionally before I started figuring out really how to solve problems with code, which I think is a goal everyone wants to have, right? I have this thing and I want to be able to do this thing more than once, or this thing takes me a long time to do if I got to cut and paste it. And you want to start figuring those things out. And I'm finally to a point now where it still takes me a little while, but I can solve most things with code, which is an amazing place to be. But it did probably take me longer than most people or should have. But everyone struggles with different things in this business.
I wonder if classes, because I mean, I've heard, I don't have a traditional background, so I taught myself. I mean, I wonder if have we ever asked anybody, Seth, if they learn programming from books, doing their own thing, or if they learned it in class? Because I feel like in class, you just go, I would imagine you just go through it real quick, and it's not like you could spend 6 months really kind of delving in, doing some hard things with, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, West Point's all about the Thayer method, and the Thayer method is essentially you teach yourself and your instructor is there to ask questions of.
Oh.
Which is, I don't know, it has its pros and its cons, but I didn't teach myself very well at the time how to code. So it was there's some things in math that I'm just not really good at, and I muddled through them in school, but I wouldn't say that I know them.
I feel like you get better at learning things the more you try to learn things, right?
Yeah.
So not necessarily the older you get, but the more experience you get.
Well, eventually it became fun, right? Like the tool we wrote, or just writing things to break into stuff, is both one, a necessity, and two, fun. Where your college class where you're doing some database stuff is I didn't put that in the fun category. I'd actually love to probably go do it again. I'd probably smash that class, but
yeah, you probably would.
At the time, it's hard to really recognize what it is that's going to be useful out of it, right?
Yeah, it's just going so fast, and that wasn't what I wanted to do yet. Like those beginning programming classes, because I had a computer engineering. Everyone there takes an engineering track, and so mine was computer science. So I wasn't even into computers then. I was a freshman, and I was stuck taking it with everybody else that just had to take it. And so probably it was okay.
I've always wanted to ask you, outside of computer security, what are some of the big life or anything that you think are some of the most valuable things from West Point, having never gone to West Point or know anybody else from West Point that I know of?
Oh man, that's a good one. See, you guys should have sent me questions. I could have prepared a little better.
No, we like to do it on the fly.
On the spot. Bad answers. Things that I learned from there. So their big thing there is they give you more things to do than you have time to do it.
Sure.
And so you do learn what's important, or what can I put off until tomorrow, right? So that does carry over into the military, especially if you're an Army or you're an officer or something where you've got all these competing requirements. But yeah, definitely I can say, okay, I got 10 things to do. Which one is due today? Which one is due tomorrow? And I can mentally shuffle those and put them in an order. And I don't stress over it.
That's just a good life skill to have.
It is an excellent life skill. It took me a while to back off, though, because we were always so busy that I felt like I had to be busy all the time. And I think a lot of us suffer from that of like, I got 10 million projects going on, or I got 10 million hobbies or 10 million pieces of code working or whatever. And I have been actively trying to like scale that back because you can stress yourself out. You're stressed out, stress yourself out with too much stuff. And then you have to realize it's just extra. You don't have to do it. Once I started realizing in categories and putting things in do I have to do it, or do I want to do it, or is it just kind of for fun?
Right.
You can order those things a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on a key thing. Like everybody we talk to on this podcast, they kind of do have like so many things going on, and I don't know this for a fact, but I do feel like it's probably a pretty prevalent thing in this industry to sort of to feel like you need to have that many things going on, or you need to be involved in that many projects, or say yes to so many things, or maybe that opportunity is not going to come up. Someone asks you to do a blog article or come on a podcast.
Someone asks you to be on a podcast. You got to go to their house to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, there's that balance of building your persona and being in the public eye, which leads to better, more jobs and opportunities and things, right? But you do need to learn some balance. When I mentor people, it's all about, you should smash it in the beginning and get to where you can taper it off and just do the things that you want to do, the things you want to do in the end is your goal, right? But it is, InfoSec is a game, and you do need to, get yourselve out there in a positive way. And there's lots of things you can do to do that, and people should.
You've talked to me. You've talked to several people publicly, like, or at least in groups that we've been in, where mentorship comes up, and you start talking about your experience. And I know that like you touched on one of those things. And by the way, we get people. One of the things is we're trying to help people that don't necessarily figure out where they need to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so you touched on one of those things, which is, basically like you need to get yourself out there, which we've talked about being like blog posts or open source code or anything like that.
Yeah, I'd say, and I've put this answer on Quora and other things, blog, if that's your thing. You can use Medium now if you don't want to like run your own WordPress, or everyone seems to be on Medium sites, which is totally fine. Just getting that information out there, your GitHub repo, especially since you can pen repositories, those should be your code, right? And then contributing to open source stuff that helps, and then bug bounty, your HackerOne rank, your Synac rank, your BugCrowd rank, that carries weight for, especially at least in InfoSec, right? If someone's like top 50 in one of these programs, I'm going to know they at least have some skills, right?
Oh yeah,
right. They're good enough to get paid. They're good enough to move up in rank. And is someone going to come in doing that? No, but you work your way up, right? InfoSec is a toolbox, right? Like, every week you're on a job, or every book you crack open, or every tutorial you read, you're like, oh, I'm learning how this wrench works. And ideally, you have a really good handle of like when to use this wrench and what for. And cool, you don't use it every week. You put it in your box. You like hopefully put it like on your personal wiki, so whenever I got to go after Node.js or whatever, I need to know this. Right, you document that. The tools are in my box. The documentation's like probably in your personal wiki or your personal Google Doc, or however you keep notes. And then when that opportunity comes back around for a bug bounty or a pen test job, like you dig in the toolbox, find the tool, and go read how to do it again, and go to town. And it's iterative, right? Like no one comes in knowing everything. You just build it over time.
And then you forget it over time.
Yeah, that's exactly why.
You
relearn. That's why I have a wiki. After like the third time, I was like, man, I know I did this. I started just writing it down, because I knew if I did a good enough job taking notes, that I would be able to refresh myself later. That has saved my ass more times than I can count.
That's a damn good reason to blog. That's a damn good reason.
Yeah. So I have the kernel ownage blog that doesn't get updated too much. But when I started working for the same person every week, it became really difficult to talk about the things I used to pwn somebody that week, right?
Yeah.
When you're a consultant, you'd be like, I totally use this exploit, and no one knows who it's for. But if you're like, totally use this exploit today. They're like, oh, so, day job is vulnerable to that. Cool. That's awesome to know. Thanks, bro.
Now
And you're like, oh, that's a little above the risk level, right? So it became difficult to find things to blog about. But yeah, I also have a personal one that has like my personal notes, and just because I see things so infrequently, like did all that Oracle work, did all that Cold Fusion work, and that was all because we had a string of jobs that were Cold Fusion jobs, and I had to figure it out.
Oh yeah, you wrote Metasploit modules for that, where you're basically figuring out like vulnerable versions of Cold Fusion and exploiting it. Same with Oracle.
Yeah, and then I didn't see it again for years, and so everyone's like, "Oh, don't you need to go after Oracle?" I was like, "Man, I haven't been after an Oracle box in 4 years. I don't even know." Like, I go Google, and then my stuff comes up, and I'm like, "Oh, maybe I should have remembered that." Or I think Rob was trolling me the other day about that.
That's full circle, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm learning from myself.
Yeah, you're like, "Oh, I'm glad I wrote that down."
I'm glad someone did. I remember a blog post about this. Oh, that was mine. That's right. Yeah.
Which, makes you the expert. If you're like the top Google results, you're now the expert. So
bring on the movie checks.
Yeah. So on this, on the mentor mentee, like what I want to know is what makes a good mentee, I guess is that the right word, mentee, and what makes a bad one. Because I know you've had experiences with both.
Yeah, I've had both. Actually, there was a Twitter exchange where I said, "Yeah, I mean, I'm glad to help. I'd be glad to help people out, but most people don't actually want to do work, right?" I sound like an old person on this, but I look at being a mentor as not directing you what to do, but to be there to answer questions and to say, "Well, this is what happened to me," or just to give guidance or advice or determine. I want to facilitate that person to grow themselves, right? I can't dictate, if you go learn these 10 technologies, you're going to be awesome. I don't know. Like it's where you live dependent. It's your attitude dependent. There's a million factors that go into that. So what I'd say is a good mentee are the ones that are willing to do work and to listen, right? I had one that was like, "Hey man, I think you should read this book." And it was the Red Team book by Zinko, right? And so it's not like a hardcore, like shells all day long book, but it talks about red teaming as a bigger concept of like, what is red teaming? And the guy actually went and did it, right? So he did it. And then it's the guy that I gave, it's Hayden Johnson. It's who we did the Sector talk with. Like, he was willing to put in work, and he listened and, thought about what I would say. And not that he did everything I said, but would think about it and do some stuff and didn't just want to be told what to do.
Right.
And I'd say that's probably the real differentiator is wants to learn, will ask questions. I usually ask someone, "What do you want to know?" Right? And most of them are like, "I don't know." I was like, "Well, then you're not ready for me to mentor you. Go pay for someone, go take some classes, and they'll tell you what you need to know to pass your class. But if you want, I can explain to you how I did it, but I think everyone, like we were just talking about, everyone in InfoSec has their own origin story and their own way of growing up. And, the stuff Seth was talking about on Twitter, like there's no one path to it, right? Depending on who your manager or boss is or your peers, you may think you need to slave away at help desk. And, if you have those skills, great. Are they required to do, they're definitely not required to do AppSec, right? Maybe if you want to do NetSec, they're useful, but I wouldn't say that there's anything required to do. So yeah, do work, listen, ask questions. Again, it's not
sounds kind of hard.
It's not an instant gratification, which I think I'm certainly guilty of wanting instant gratification of things too. But building a career, you don't do that in a year, right? And some people get popular really quick, but I don't know if they were maybe super talented before. But most people just put in the work, grinding it out, learning things, and then maybe they get popular, if that means anything in InfoSec. It's like Val Smith says, you're a famous bowler. Like I'm broken into a lot of shit, and my neighbor's like, "Can you help me with my Wi-Fi?" I'm like, "I guess, bro. Hey, can you rebuild my kid's laptop?" "Sure, man. Why not?" It's like, never mind. Like, we've broken into these amazing companies, all kinds of verticals, or just like really fucked up some web apps or whatever.
Yeah.
And your neighbor's like, "Oh man, my router's not working."
Yeah.
Reboot.
Those are the calls that you get. Yeah.
Yeah.
that was a couple of years ago. I can't remember if it was DEF CON or Black Hat. Somebody actually did analysis on the security space, specifically what you're talking about. Like, oh, you've got these like security rock stars that, tens of thousands of people follow them on Twitter. Yeah, no one cares, right?
Yeah.
No one really cares. The only people that are that popular that are in information security that are out from the outside are the jailbreak guys, right? And that's only that's only because they're actually releasing something that regular people use to get around what Apple's forcing them to do, right? But in general, no one cares, right? They just know you as the hacker guy down the street who can fix their Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I mean, they'll come ask you, what do you think about the, breach of the week or whatever, and you're just like, I don't know, man. Like, it's hard. You got 10,000 hosts on a network. Can you miss one? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
totally happens. I mean, if you got everyone's stuff, maybe you should work a little harder at that. But I understand how those things happen.
Yeah, well, we've seen it over and over, right? I mean,
yeah, it's the same thing. Like, and it goes back to instant gratification and. Like, in building a secure network is work, right?
It is.
It's work. Building a secure web app is work. Yeah. I have seen very few companies. I've been doing this outside of the Army for about 10 years now, a little over 10 years. And, I'd say the number of networks that were like really good, probably 5 to 10 at the most. The people that were like, doing VLANs and doing them correctly, did egress, right?
That's pretty terrible.
Patch stuff, right? And this is all the stuff that like everyone's like ad nauseum talking about, and it's boring. It's absolutely boring. It's not sexy at all. But if you actually have segmentation between like, I don't know, your servers and your workstations or your servers and your cameras and things like that,
right?
Where your admin on your camera doesn't let me talk to your, critical server, and totally have seen that in my career. Sure, everybody has. That's, but if you just don't want to do it, it's really hard work. It's really hard, and it's not something that a consultant can do for you because there's all those nuances of how you run your own network or your own stack.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I always, for new people, I always recommend it be similar to what you're talking about with building your own network. It's always, try to build a web app, just something basic.
Yeah.
Just something that does anything, couple pages, doesn't matter. But, go through the process of trying to do that and then add a little bit more. And it's the same with the network. Like, you need to know the networking ins and outs, and that takes work. Like, it takes work to learn it. It takes work once you understand it to do it securely. So, yeah, do the work, I guess.
Yeah,
that's the goal.
You're in this job because you like to go from I don't know how to do this to I know how to completely fuck this thing up.
No, I'm in it for the cyber checks, man.
I'm in it for the I didn't know how to do that, and now I can make this thing do stuff that no one else thought it could do. Right? Yeah. That's exciting. Right. That's what I love about hacking is I don't know how I'm getting to this point and I'm way over here, but there's a way there. I know it. Just figuring it out. And can I do it in the, if you're a consultant, you got 4 days to do it. Right. Yeah. Maybe if you're internal red, you might have weeks to months, and that's a lot more fun. Right. So then the distance gets further and further, and the more hops in between and more things to figure out. So I love that part. Yeah,
that's that. I agree. Totally have that same feeling, but also that feeling when you get something to pop. I mean, if you've never had that feeling, it's so addictive, and it's something you can kind of chase. And finding a good bug or a good hole or finding a good way in, that's always a good feeling. But then there's that we've talked about before, that whole slope of depression.
Yeah, we have
Vinny depression that is the assessment you are working on.
Yeah, Vinny Lou's diagram of, oh man, I should go work at McDonald's. Oh, what? That's weird. Oh, I got it right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's totally real. It happens. Every CTF you do, every pen test you do, you're like, man, I should probably hang this up
Yeah.
And then eventually, like, oh yeah, finally, I'm awesome. I'm back.
I'm not complete shit anymore.
Don't gotta hang the candle up anymore.
That never goes away. For those who don't know, that never goes away.
Yeah, no, I mean, God forbid.
So basically, what you're saying is we're just like drug addicts, and we're chasing the high, right?
Yeah, God forbid you take a break for like 2 years and do defense, and then start trying to do red again, and you'll be like shaking the cobwebs off and stuff. You're like, man, this hurts.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so, and you've done. So yeah, actually, so for those that aren't familiar with like purple teaming, because we've talked about on this podcast the concept of blue team being defense, red team being offense, but you've done a whole talk. Is that what Chris Nickerson on the purple teaming?
Yeah, I've given a couple talks. So Chris Nickerson and I give the like adversarial simulation talk. We've given 2 versions of that. And I gave one at RuxCon. It's probably close to 3 years ago now on like my purple teaming experiences when I was at Facebook.
And purple teaming, like, can you give people like a kind of a brief overview of what purple teaming means?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's just, there's like a million definitions. I wish I had I think there's the post about meta has a good, Raphael Mudge has a really good definition of it. And it's really just, merging offense and defense to where you do some offensy stuff to elicit responses for the blue team to have to do things, right? So you have this collaborative environment, elicit an action by the blue team.
I want to say
it's on the Medium post for that. It's on the Uber's thing.
Uber's? Okay.
Uber Medium security. Like you do InSec security blog, it should come up. InSec engineering security.
Oh,
we're just totally live.
Yeah. We're going to figure it out. Or I'll let you just type it in. Here, you figure it out.
All right. Oh, man.
We're not only going to ask you questions on the fly, but then we're going to have you look it up.
Now. Well, while you're here, Chris, can you just go ahead and take a look at this network?
Yeah.
Can you just post this by yourself? We're going to go have a couple drinks. And
yeah, fix my router while you're at it. It's not going so well.
Yeah. Bring it on over, man. I'll fix it.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't see, man.
Oh, well, okay. That's
maybe we just put in the show notes.
I'll just put it in the show notes.
Ask me another question while I'm trying to Google here.
Somebody's asking us about chat.
Chat.
Yeah, I guess there's an issue with chat, and
chat's not working.
It's something with like you need to have, I think, a YouTube. I don't know the rule. Chat live, maybe.
There we go.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, if people have questions, they can DM us too on Twitter.
Yeah, it's open, so you can just DM us or send us an email at absoluteappsec@gmail.com. We're watching that inbox, so it's absoluteappsec@gmail.com.
Okay, I'll respond to Sean there too.
Okay. All right, so I have the answer finally. So this is what Raphael Mudge's thing is from. So I'd say that this is really an adversarial simulation, and we could get into the like purple teaming versus adversarial simulation. It's probably not fun, but I'll just read. It says, I said that it differs from red teaming in that adversarial simulation is typically a cooperative activity between the simulation runners and the simulation recipients, right? The end goal is we're validating defensive telemetry. So ideally, your blue teams have all these blinky boxes. They have EDR products and Splunk and all these other things. A lot of times people, if they don't get an email, they just assume everything is fine. So the idea is we do some stuff to elicit those emails or to elicit those pages or elicit the tickets to show up in the ticketing system. And that is they then have to go through their response playbooks and plans, right? So then I think the key thing there being cooperative. Where red teaming is, I'm doing everything I can to get to whatever the objective is, and I'm doing everything I can not to get caught. Right. Yeah. So that's being the big difference between like purple teaming, adversarial simulation, and then red teaming is I absolutely don't want to get caught on a red team, and I'm using social, physical, and electronic, and the blend of those, and how access in one facilitates access to another to reach the objective. Where again, adversarial sim. I want you to catch me. That's the whole point. And if I don't get caught along the way, I'm going to do something at the end to do so that you've got to see something and then work backwards.
Okay. So this is, well, so that brings up a few good points, but one of them is having a plan in general. Like, yeah, have you ever had someone ask you, hey, what's your 30, 60, 90-day plan? I don't know if you ever had anyone ask you that. I have.
Not in a long time.
Well, part of that, yeah, not in a long time.
Not die. Pay my bills.
Yeah.
That's my 30-day plan every month.
30-day plan. Pay my bills. That'll work.
Well, I have, and I don't know if anybody else has, but had that question. But that's always part of it for me. Is the whole like just having an incident response plan. Period.
Yeah,
like a way to communicate. Because these are the simple things that people don't think about. It's like, well, you can tell us more, but I mean, I know like communication channels. That's one. Figuring out how to communicate, who to contact, having an up-to-date list of who to contact.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm really bad at all that. I mean, SANS has a number of classes on that.
Oh, do they?
And if someone has got tapped to build a incident response program, they should go take the SANS class, and they cover that in glorious, expensive detail, and it's really good.
Expensive detail, yeah.
It's good. I mean, I love SANS training, and I love when I have employers that will allow me to take it. I could definitely try to link you up with somebody that could be on the show to help more about that.
Incident response.
Yeah, I mean that's a new thing for me with with this kind of purple thing. I went from just smashing things every week to doing the blue purple thing. And
yeah, but I don't even mean anything advanced. I'm saying like literally just like, are we using Google Docs to track the incident and make notes?
Those are good things to know before you have an incident, for sure.
Yeah, because people don't seem to prepare too well for that. And these days, it seems like anybody can get popped, accidentally committing code or AWS keys.
Happens.
Wait. Does that happen?
No. Never.
As a total.
Only on Pastebin.
Yeah. Yeah, only on Pastebin. And no one monitors Pastebin, so it's fine.
It's good. It's safe.
Yeah. So, how has that transition been? Because I really, coming from the consulting side right now, right where I'm at, I don't see a lot of purple teaming necessarily going on. Right. Most of what people still ask me is definitely from an application assessment or application attack perspective, is application red teaming. Even from a source code review perspective, right? There's very little, hey, can we see what's going on? So how has that transition happened for you and where you're currently at? And are you seeing more people and more interest in it?
Oh, that's a good question. So obviously working for a single company now, so I can't speak too much for how that's looking commercially. I guess that'd be a good Dave Kennedy question or Chris Nickerson question.
Yeah.
To kind of get an idea of how frequently they're seeing people ask for that. I would say that thinking back on my consulting days, I think it's super difficult to do that as a commercial vendor, right? Or as a 1 week pen test. So you could have, when we ran some jobs before purple teaming was a thing, where we just had another person there with the blue team to kind of be okay, they're, chatting with me, we're doing the attacks, or we're okay, I'm now on this box. And they're kind of with the SOC saying, oh, do you see any of this? And they're like, no, had no alerts. And I think that was kind of the beginning of that. But to really, I think, to do well at making sure people are doing the response plan, if you're doing that as a vendor, you'd almost have to happen into luck into doing something that would get caught at the appropriate time, right? A lot of the simulation is getting to a point where you've actually done some damage or had some access before you get caught. An internal team understands that a lot better, or you could even suppress alerts if you needed to in order to get to a point where you've not doing the initial access, but you've maybe have persistence on a few different hosts. You've now pivoted off of those and you're working into attacking the network or looking into other things Where, I mean, a good blue team may catch you at the fish stage and shut you down and shut you down and shut you down, and now your week's up. Where, you know, if you're internal, you can just skip some of that if you need to. It's really maturity of the organization, right? Like a lot of times, you know, most places are getting fished all day long every day, and anybody that's responding to that stuff know that people install things and click things. And so if you're an internal team, you can say, cool, you know, as frequently as the org wants us to, we'll demonstrate that we can get people to open an email and do something. Let's just assume that we can get that to happen and just start from the next stage. Because honestly, the phishing piece isn't that interesting. It's been done to death. Pivoting off of a Mac or pivoting off of these boxes and, working against EDR products or application whitelisting is a far more interesting problem, right? So like, let's start here. That's more interesting. It's more interesting for me. It's more interesting, I think, for the blue team than responding to yet another fish.
Yeah.
So can it be done? I think it can be done. I think it's difficult. You have to have a really good relationship with your customer. That's probably something I think that you would build over time, and not something you could come in first engagement with them. But like, hey, you've done a test, you've done a few red teams, you have some trust and some rapport. Now we're willing to let you know kind of like some of our signatures, and whether you've accumulated that from getting caught on the other engagements or they just told you, maybe they just did a whole bunch of like, we think we can catch all things PowerShell. Cool. Let's make sure we're using like a PowerShell implant, or maybe we're not using a power. So whatever they want, right? To test, like, cool. Like, we think we can catch all forms of lateral movement. All right, cool. Like, let me try the craziest thing I can think of and see if I get caught. It's a lot easier to do internally because you have time and it's not a big deal to your reputation. If you get caught, it's a win.
Yeah,
you're an internal team doing it. You know, if you're a vendor and you get caught, you're in that like, oh well, maybe we shouldn't have paid you all this money to do this zone. It can get dicey.
Being a vendor is a hard life.
It's rough. Yeah, and to answer the other part of the question of like why I decided to do it, Haroon Mir has done he's done a few talks on like that transition and how that transition is more interesting. And I could go find the talk later and post it somewhere, but he is like one of the people that has really, I'm supposed to be in the podcast. He's one of the people that really gets it and has gotten it before the general public has gotten it. And he's talked about it. He's an amazing person. And he's like one of the people that I absolutely watch all his talks. If he has something to say, people should listen.
What's his Twitter handle?
Man, put me on the spot.
Well, yeah,
you should be able to find it.
I'll be able to find it.
Yeah, he's amazing. And yeah, he talks a lot about using the good and helping those people out is good, and I've enjoyed it. That merging of the two is far more interesting.
Yeah, it seems to be progressing and pushing things further along in an organization to actually secure things rather than just, the one-off, red team activity that says, all right, we made it in. This is the path that we did it. But it doesn't necessarily close things out or close that loop. So
right,
it's definitely interesting. We do have a Ken Toller on YouTube asked a couple of questions. So let me ask it here. First of all, is the purple team grape flavored? Yeah, whatever.
Tastes like Kool-Aid, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Kool-Aid. Yep, good. The other one is the purple team something you go for outright, or do you think you need a budget for an internal red before you could even approach the concept of purple?
That's a great question. And so I'll tell you, from my experience, right? So at Uber, we don't have a red team yet. We do the purple ops as a member of the blue team. And so, and I think we were just talking about this at lunch. I think a lot of places fail real hard in this because it becomes too adversarial between the blue team and the red team. Mm-hmm. And we've had tremendous success with these activities, I'll just call them purple teaming, being either closely aligned or with the blue team. Like mad success. And then I talk to other people where, someone has a lot of ego and a lot of political clout on the line of, catching the red team. We're on the same team. There is no adversarial piece to that, which has made success far more easier. And so someone who doesn't have budget for a full blown, 5-10 person red team can get probably 1 or 2 people and add them to their blue team who are, offensive security engineers or whatever you want to call them, and go from there. I mean, that's how we've been doing it. And I've had far more success than some of these people that have joined full on corporate teams. Oh. It's all maturity, and it's all, those 2 managers, the blue team manager and the red team manager, I mean, they absolutely have to have a really good relationship or it's just going to get dicey and uncomfortable.
Yeah. I mean, those, they're definitely competing roles, right?
Yeah. In the end though, our paycheck is signed by the same person. Yep. And, especially if you work for like a Silicon Valley company, my net worth is tied into this company being secure and doing well. And I'm, we should be motivated at the same end result. But sometimes I think people lose sight of that, and it's you beat me or you caught me.
Ego is a dangerous thing.
Yeah, it's super dangerous. In the end, I just don't want my company to get hacked. Especially if you're public, you definitely don't want your public. Share price goes down for a week or 2, right? And then it goes back up. But it affects a lot of things, and so it shouldn't be. It's the us versus them is company versus everyone outside the company. The us versus them should never be one group against another group inside the company, unless it's a friendly competition.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I think you're about to ask the other question.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the last one was for building rapport with a pen test consultant. How do you face the management recommendation for compliance auditors to change up vendors? Do you think that's so I think he's asking whether or not like changing up a vendor is really a useful thing when you are dealing with pen test provider.
I think you can get around that by you should have your adversarial simulation or purple teaming fall into training. And you shouldn't have the same requirements that you would to switch vendors. You probably don't have that switching vendors for a training requirement. So call it training events, and there you go.
There you go, Ken. Toller.
There's another Ken that asked the question for clarity.
That asked the question.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise you got to get waivers or whatever. But it's a challenge.
I would say on that is the the scope perspective, right? If I'm dealing with one pen test firm, if I'm changing the scope up year after year, I'm getting them to do different things. It's probably an easier discussion point, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to do, if you're trying to get something besides one path to the thing, you just need someone that is experienced and has attacked you a few times and has grown with you as a vendor and as you as a client. At Lars, we had some amazing clients that had grown over the years, and they were extremely hard to break into. And so I did learn that you can have these relationships with clients, you can grow them and build them to where they become very difficult places to break into. It can be done.
Yeah.
And I'll call it institutional knowledge that you would have as an outside consultant is super useful to just understanding their environment. I mean, it's tremendously difficult to understand all the intricacies of someone's environment in a week or 2. That takes a long time. I mean, anybody that's been on an internal team knows it takes months to understand how everything works. You start a new job somewhere, it's like you're still lost for a really long time of how all the magic happens. If you're a global company, how you just really need that time with either your vendor or your internal team.
Well, this is pretty good questions. Seth, I did want to mention we have another question via email from Sean. Okay. So Sean Jackson's question was, so this is related to earlier. It says it's very hard when they're in the incident and I'm the first InfoSec Pro hired. There's a lot of resistance, and can you tell us how to convert the uninitiated to our cause? So I think the question, if I had to summarize, was basically like, imagine you're the first security person, and you need to get people to get on board with what you're doing. I think that's the question. Like, how would you being the first security person go and get like?
Is he talking like while an incident's going on, or just in general? I mean, tabletops and things like that are how you start to develop that internal coordination. And
I mean, I don't think in the incidents when you really want to start doing that. I mean, I think we can start there and say take that out of the picture.
Okay.
Let's say you need to basically establish relationships within throughout the company, all things relevant where you need to keep like sales from clicking on links, or you know what I mean, like those different. So let's put you in the role of, I guess, a CISO almost. Yeah, it's a hard question.
That's the role you want. I can tell from your face.
Oh, every CISO I've asked if I should be a CISO said don't do it. But I'm like, that's what I'm supposed to do next. I'm confused.
Yeah, I don't know.
I still don't know what to do. Man, that is such a complex question, I think. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm trying to just process, like, you definitely need to align with the person that created that job description and hired you, right?
Yeah.
So someone somewhere in that organization realized the need, went through HR and created the job description. I would start with that person, right? And I'm sure their friends, is probably their manager. That is the person that I think can help you with the political capital and clout in the org. I think the other thing is just running tabletops where you bring in IT, you're bringing in the router guys, you're bringing in the web guys, and you like, what's that Twitter page where it's like
the tabletop.
Yeah,
it's like, I forget what it's called, but it's like tabletop scenario.
There's like some like horrible tabletop scenarios, like really hard ones.
Start there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, grab an easy-ish one, right? And just get those people in a room and talk through that. And then, I think once you've done a few of those, because then you'll start to say, oh, well, do we even have an IR policy? Yes, no. Okay, cool. Let's bring it up. Let's look at it. Does it make sense? Are we actually going to have an incident, right? And then start fixing that stuff. There's a lot of work to do with just having policy and knowing who to call. Doing that. And then,
that's not the sexy part of InfoSec, right?
Absolutely not. It's horrible.
It's the hard part that no one wants to do, but you can tell when you walk into an organization whether or not they've done that, right? Just based on how they handle an incident.
Yeah, I can tell you it's a lot more fun to plan, right? And it's like already there. You just copy the template and you start working the tasks. Far better experience in the like looking at each other. What do we do now? Like, who do we call up? Having your like outside comms so you can actually work an incident in the event like the whole domain is owned. After that's happened, like outages, right? But the tabletops are the time to do that. And then you can, if you have the money, you either do it, you hire a vendor to do something very tailored for you, very specific. Like, you send the fish, I got someone that's going to click on it. You guys, stay in Windows land, stay in Mac land, whatever it is you want to test. And just, if I was CISO, I would hire some vendors and make sure that we caught them, right? These need to be wins, hard wins, right?
Yeah.
To show that the process works and to let people, stressful but not too stressful environment, to get that camaraderie going, right?
Seth and I have both had people come in new and been like, do in our consulting days. Well, I guess that still does consulting, but basically say, find bad shit, and then we're going to use that as like awareness for our developers. I don't know if you've ever been put in that position where they're like, do your test and really mess us up because we want to have some sort of I don't know if it's helpful. I don't know on the other end if that's helpful, but I have been asked to do that.
I mean, not on the like developer side, but I've definitely been front loaded some knowledge by people that wanted to get things fixed. And for whatever reason, people don't want to listen to the people that are there every day working with the stuff. They need some stranger that's been there for 4 days to be like, totally messed up. You know, you should totally listen to John over there who's been,
isn't that weird?
Stressing that. Yeah, it blows my mind that some people just don't want to listen to that. I mean, tell you what, man, someone's been at your company for a few years. They're loyal. They want you to do well. You should probably listen to them. You should listen to them far more than consultant guy who really just wants to like have another engagement next year.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if someone's been there for a long time, they care. And I haven't met very many people that don't care about the security where they work. And generally, we all care a lot, and we're all very loyal. So, like, we're raising those issues not to be assholes, but to like fix them.
Yeah, and you know that's why some people, a lot. I'm saying some people. There's a good number of folks that have been talking about over the last few years. Well, maybe a lot even longer in security, where they're like, you know, there's a lot of kind of burnout and whatnot, and like it's not burnout because like you're working too much. It's because nobody's fucking listening, and you're like,
yeah,
what the hell? What am I doing? And the funny thing is, a lot of those people that are on defense, they're the ones, they have been consultants before. They've had the shiny little badge and, you know, tag, and they've had the business card. And so what's the difference? They care more. Yeah, I think I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and at some point, they like the company hired them on because they realized they wanted that expertise, and then forgot that they should really pay attention to what they're saying.
Yeah. The other thing I learned going from external to internal was understanding the process of things that get fixed. And I've told the story before, but not on this podcast, so I'll tell it again. Was like my first big pen test at Facebook. I found some stuff, and I was like, "Hey, this is jacked up. Y'all should go fix that." My manager was like, "Man, how do they fix it?"
Yeah,
and I was like, "I have no idea. I've never actually had to do that." Right? I got shoved right out of my comfort zone, way over there. And so like I had to install the software the way we were using it, see options. It was like an authentication issue. So see different options for doing authentication, and then figure out which way worked best for us and our use cases.
It's a weird place to be in. Yeah.
I mean, blown away, right? Like no one ever asked, right? I always just said, nope, you're hosed later. See you in a year. Hope you fix it. And then I got to see like, you know, being on an internal blue team, like how long it takes to fix something. And like people, it's not that they don't care. They're just busy.
Yeah.
And I've just piled more stuff on their plate, and that wasn't planned.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you can come to them, when I was able to come to them with this is the problem. I've evaluated the 4 or 5 different ways to do this. I think we should do this one. And you can have that conversation with the people that can make those decisions, and you make the decision. And then I followed up and like made the tasks for everyone that had vulnerable pieces of software or whatever, and followed up, and like we fixed a problem. And I was like, holy shit, we fixed a problem. There's now a wiki article on how to set this up. You know, we set up the vulnerability scanner to find those things so we could identify them in the future. And then when they showed up, it's easy. You point them to the wiki article and you're like, hey, please fix this.
Yeah.
Here's how you do it. Super easy. It needed some tweaking as the few people worked on stuff, but like most people were like, oh, I didn't even need that. They just shut it off, or, you know, the people that were using it fixed it. And, but I really, really opened my eyes to because the burnout comes from like, 1, you have the same week every week, but then 2, you have the same year every year when you kind of go back to places. Like, you know, I've been back to places and the same password still works, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're like, man, they didn't get around to patching something, and you're like, man, why? Don't you care?
Yeah.
And that seems to be like, oh, you just don't care. And then I came to realize it's not that they don't care; it's just they're just busy. That person is probably one person, and it should be 4.
Yeah.
And you know, if they have to research the best way to fix your thing you found, it may just not get done if it's not critical enough.
Well, yeah, that's just it. Like, you know, we as consultants, you know, especially when I first got into consulting, you just kind of threw, oh, this is high severity, right?
Yeah.
but you really like, there's no there's no like quantitative scale that you're using. It's like, hey, I can do bad things. And and that most you get into those meetings with developers and they push back on that hard, right? Because they know, okay, if you say you can do bad things, that means that I have to do a whole bunch of work to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to prove that you can do bad things, just so that I can prove to my manager that this is bad enough that we have to push this feature so I can actually go do it, right?
Right. Yeah, it's difficult to understand
It
impact.
also depends on who you're working with in the organization, right? So if it's like audit and compliance that's asked for a penetration test, they may not necessarily care whether or not anything gets fixed.
Right. They just needed you to show up and do it.
Yeah. Yep. They wanted the checkbox. They got their checkbox. They sent the report off to somebody else. He looked at it and said, I don't have time for this, and walks away. And then the next year it's the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a challenge. I mean, I think being a consultant is really difficult because you have to go from zero to understanding something super quick. It's difficult, very, very difficult. And then you've got to give advice, and you honestly, not through no fault of your own, any fault of your own, but like you just don't understand the dynamics of the environment. It can be difficult to give advice and give good advice anyway.
Yeah, that doesn't.
It's really difficult. I actually don't miss that now that I've seen the other side of that. Of like, I think we told the story at BrewCon of like, I was on the receiving end of a red team, and I was like, man, did I sound like this on the phone? Man, I was an ass. Right? Like, oh yeah, if you just like noticed the weird series of packets leaving the network, you totally would have, caught me. I was like, bro, how? Like, we have terabytes of traffic a day. How would I notice like 3 weird send packets or something, right? Like, I wouldn't. It's stupid. But then I thought, hey, I totally said some bullshit like that to people, not understanding anything about their environment or what the detection looks like or hardening or any of those things. So it was really eye-opening. It was humbling to be like, man, I said that shit.
You feel like an a-hole?
I was like, man, I can't believe. I was just like, man, I was just thinking, man, this consultant's an ass. And I was like, wait a minute. I've said similar things. That means they thought I was an ass.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man. I thought about that for a while.
Yeah, then you think about all those calls you're on where it kind of got like quiet and kind of awkward. Nobody said anything. They're just like, okay.
Yeah. They're just like,
what were they thinking? Yeah.
They're all looking at each other like, this guy's he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Now I get to put on. Now I'm in that room and we're looking at each other like, what is this guy talking about?
Yeah.
He doesn't know anything.
It's the same in the couple of things you pointed out. Like for us, it's in with web apps, we have to get to know the application first. Yeah. We have to know what's its business purpose. How does it work? Like, what are the roles? What do they let you do? What should you not be able to do? All those things that takes time. And then, like you said, it's easier when you have code for us, but often there are definitely a lot of times when you won't have code. And so in those instances, if you say some bullshit like, well, just, I don't know, sanitize your inputs for like a cross-site scripting vuln, which I think we have a blog, or there's an article on your blog about it, but the whole thing is like, that's useless. That's in the context, if you don't know anything, you're just putting bullshit out there and hoping it sticks. So that rambling, but yeah, it's it's just similar.
I'm not sure I'm ready to get on an airplane all the time and be a consultant again, but I feel like I would be a much better consultant after having been internal for a bit, because I think I use the word empathy a lot. I have a lot more empathy for these places. I hope it would carry over if I had to do that again, but I'm sure I think it would.
Yeah, I think I've personally, I found it useful to go back in because I've done the switch a couple of times and just, oh yeah, that's right. It's not all about finding the vulnerabilities. It's about fixing, and how that actually happens is very different from org to org.
Yeah. No, I think I will someday. Not sure when. Maybe when the kids are a little older, but
yeah.
It's exciting. Plus, just life you get older and life has changed, right? And, I was professionally grumpy for a really long time, which really affected me later.
Yeah.
So now I'm trying to be professionally happy, and things are going a lot better once I decided, made the choice to be happy as much as possible instead of just being grumpy as much as possible.
Well, I mean, that goes back to what you were talking about earlier, as far as like figuring out what the priority is, right? Learning, hey, this is what I have to do today. This is what I want to do. And this is stuff that's just, I can do it at some point, but I don't need to do it, right? Being able to say no and turn something down and actually like make people classify what's important and what's not.
Yeah, I think that's important for work. It's also important for life and like having happiness at work as well, right? Like when you can pick between projects, say, oh, I feel like doing this today.
Yeah, choice always makes a big difference.
Man, feeling like you have a choice is monumental, right?
Huge difference. No,
right. I mean, it is night and day different of when you have a choice to do something and when you have to do something.
Yeah.
Right?
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, like we've been going for a while, but I did want to get into the talk that you guys did just recently, your trip to Brazil and all that, and you're like, what was it, like a honeymoon for the two of you, right?
We had a lot of time together.
I was going to say, like, I saw pictures. There was Jesus involved. I don't know.
Found Jesus on the trip.
We did, right? We
did find Jesus on the trip.
Yeah.
I mean, who could say that?
He was hidden, and then you found him. The clouds parted, and you found Jesus. So
it's meant to be, I guess. More talks. More talks.
It'll have to happen.
For those that don't understand that reference, we're talking about Christ the Redeemer. We were in Brazil, so we saw Christ the Redeemer. We were at the top. It's covered by clouds. Pardon. Chris found Jesus.
Yeah,
I think I put it. It was on Twitter. We're good.
It was on Twitter. We're good.
It was on Twitter. Everyone understands, right?
Yeah.
No, but okay. So give it because like the new tool that you've written is all about AWS and enumeration, right? Basically, but. Or not, tell me whatever it is, right? But give me a rundown, just a short like TLDR on what the talk was about, what the tool does, and let's dig into that for a little bit.
Okay. I mean, the talk was totally an excuse to have WierdAAL memes in a deck. I mean, that was really the whole goal. Now, I did spend a lot of time finding the right WierdAAL gifts. I can tell you that.
Yeah, they were good.
They were good. I thought they were good.
Right? If you have to find the memes to match the points,
yeah, no. Thankfully, it wasn't too hard. So, what the tool does is, I think a couple years ago when Ken and I were at RSA, we gave a screenshot of this AWS interrogate tool that I had sort of written. It was bad Python and kind of worked, kind of didn't work. The idea was, answering that. I have this AWS key. What does it do? Question. And I know when I first started doing this and I would find one of these things either like because you phish somebody or in source code or you pop a web app and you can get the config file out of it or whatever. You have this key and you're like, cool. Does it have S3 access? No. Does it have EC2 access? No. I don't know what to do with this key, right? And so the tool is to answer that question of what does this key work on? And it does that by, I think the Bodo 3 library has about 135 services. Around 120 of those, you can ask a question to the service without knowing any information, right? So like describe instances for EC2 is an example of it takes no arguments. You may pass arguments, but it doesn't require any. So you can say, hey, can I invoke this function on you? And yes, you can, or no, you can't. And so the tool just goes through and just brute forces all of those and just asks those questions 120 some odd times. So you can get an idea of what a key has access to. And so, we wanted to turn it from vaporware into whatever software or realware. I don't know what you call it. It was vaporware for a long time. Like a couple friends had crappy versions of it and it kind of worked. And along the way of just doing pen testing and bug bounty, there's like the IAM pwn module. So if you have an account that has IAM access, how to reset the password, how to delete 2FAC, how to make a backdoor account, how to make your own secret key and access key to go do what you want. Those are useful things to know. And we just put it all together to make it a little easier. So the first thing is enumerate what you have access to. And then the modules that are written are really based on what we ran into on like bug bounty and pen testing, or what was interesting. But I'd say the IAM one is interesting. There's some pretty interesting like EC2 ones. Like I learned about the EC2 get console screenshot or get console output and then get screenshot, and it kind of like jiggles the mouse and will like take a picture of the desktop for you, right? Like that's super handy. The get console output will get the last 64K of console output, which is can be super useful. Sometimes it's just junk, and then sometimes there's creds in it.
Seth, do you remember when we would spin up like Bitnami instances from the marketplace?
Yeah.
What goes in there? First thing.
Yeah. The passwords dropped in there. That first 64 K or whatever. Yeah. Oh no, I totally can see that as being useful, especially on a bug bounty or an engagement. You're trying to do something cool, right?
Yeah, it's super useful if you find one and you're like, oh, and by the way, it has access to all these following things, right? Let's like give me more cash.
Well, and what's funny is we talked about it like for 4 years. We share screenshots of the different talks because we talked about it everywhere for 4 years. We talked about do this, don't do that. How to prevent stuff. I mean, more than AWS, DevOps.
Yeah, all the DevOps talks.
DevOps tooling, how secure configuration, things to be on the lookout for. But we would spend, I'd say, especially in 2016, 2017, we'd spend a good portion of time talking about AWS and like things to set up, how to detect attacks and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, but a lot of it pointed towards keep your keys off the internet. Nobody listened. So that's how we preface it. 4 years of talking, nobody listens. Well, fuck it. Here's a tool that makes it easy to go pwn that stuff. So whatever, we switched we switched modes. So yeah.
I mean, to make it less horrible or less evil, it does support using like the federated stuff, so you can totally use it for work. Like I guarantee you everyone's work environments, people have checked in creds to code, and now you could use this to kind of, hey, I found this, maybe because of the way things work, you don't have IAM access for your company's AWS thing. You can run this tool and say, hey, I found this key. The impact of this key is it has access to these services in these S3 buckets, right?
Yeah.
That's super handy, and I wouldn't have been able to do that without IAM access. That means I had to like call somebody up or get on chat with someone that could look it up for me. That's never any fun, right? And the second piece of that is just having a repository of useful functions, right? And so very, occasionally or I don't know, quite frequently you have to like interact with RDS or, or DynamoDB or EC2 or whatever. And just, honestly, I have to go Stack Overflow this stuff because I do it so infrequently. It's just now to just build modules, build functions. And so, if I need to get a list of all the IPs for all the EC2 instances across all our regions, all the code is there to do that, right?
Yeah.
All the functions are there. Now you just have to write 4 or 5 more lines of code to actually strip out the IP address, and you're done. Instead of having to like, okay, well, what are all the regions that EC2 works in? Okay, I need to loop through those. I need to get instances. I need to parse that out. Blah, blah. I mean, all of it's done. So the idea is over time, people will submit. Please submit, it can just be a warehouse of like useful functions to do, like your hardening work or your engineering work.
Yeah.
And also your pen test work, but just dev work.
Yeah.
One thing we never get. Oh, sorry.
I mean, because I do run into AWS keys quite often, right? In the different Git repositories, people invite you into a private GitHub repo where they're storing all their code, and that stuff shows up more often than they want to admit. So knowing what you could actually get to, just from a baseline perspective, would be super useful. Not necessarily even trying to own or trying to get into other services.
I hope it's useful for, you found this thing, like I definitely for a bug bounty, here's what it has access to, right? Like that's super useful from the like proof of impact point of view, right? It has access to these following services and these following buckets or whatever. Like that, to me, that would go a lot further than I found this key. I don't know what it works on. I just know it works.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Yeah,
and how was the response down there? Like after you got the tool and
It was in
some
Portuguese,
demos.
so we don't know. No,
It was
It was in Portuguese.
Portuguese, so we have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, giving talks in
GP just seemed to like it. Is that?
They just nodded their heads.
yeah, I mean, giving talks in foreign countries is always weird because the cultures are always different.
Yep.
Like in Belgium, I've given talks a few times there. They'll just sit there stone faced at you, and you're like, "Are you into it? Are you not into it? You're gonna call bullshit on it?" And then they'll come up after, like, "Oh, that was amazing." I'm like, "Why didn't you say something while I was talking?" I thought, like, I suck.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think we had some people came up after and were like, "Oh, that's awesome."
Twitter. Some people are more shy, introverted, so they
A lot of people
prefer
hit
to talk
us
on
up on
Twitter.
Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems okay. I mean, I would love for people to be like, "Hey," to create issues. It'd be like, "Hey, diffs are better, but issues are fine." It'd be like, "Hey, it'd be cool if it did this," and then Ken and I can write that. There's we talked a bit in the talk about Daniel Gratz's stuff. His 3 blog posts on fucking up AWS are amazing, and anybody that works with AWS should read those a few times because they're crazy. I mean,
I feel like you went out of your way to recognize some people whose shoulders were sort of standing on for sure.
Yeah,
like that in the presentation. I mean,
and it's in the deck. Yeah, we listed some prior work like the NCC Group Scout stuff, the AWS IR stuff. It's all amazing work. Super useful stuff.
I think the long-term goal, though, that we're hoping for is to make it even more automated. I mean, Seth, we had that whole podcast where someone was shitting on auto pwn or whatever it was, auto split or whatever that was, because it made it easy to. Well, that's exactly what we want to do.
The guy was like taking Shodan and like popping stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man, you're behind the party if you're already like that, though, right?
See, that's all I'm gonna do is just like take my pastebin monitor, take those keys, run it into WierdAAL, and I'm gonna create a new tool, right?
Yeah,
sure, man.
Hopefully, we can make someone throw a fit that we've made it too easy.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that we have an open issue and things that we're kind of figuring out how to do is to take, it logs all that initial output to a database so that it is captured. It's captured by key and it's also captured by a target, and you can have multiple keys inside of a target. But I think the idea is to automate the next step, right? So like you ran the recon all module, you have access to the following 10 services. It'd really be really nice if there was like a second step module that would go and do like the follow-up stuff, because sometimes you have access to something and there's nothing there, right? So that's not too interesting. It'd be nice to like get that second level of work done automatically. And because the data is in the database, it should be doable, right? Like we're logging the functions that need to be called, and should be able to map more or less. Because most of what you found and got logged didn't require an argument. We should theoretically be able to call that second step, like DynamoDB list tables or whatever,
right? And
just run that as a second piece, and then log all that to the database as well for you.
Cool. Yeah, it sounds like I need to play some more because that's all. I mean, I saw it all posted. I was like, oh, I got to use that, but getting the better description of it is good. Are you guys going to present on it here in the States anywhere?
I don't know.
Toller said something that cracked me up. He goes, if RDS is open to your keys, log it all to their database. Which, by the way, we're going to have Ken Toller on. I think I owe him some dates to. I think I forget. I need to link up with him. But yeah, in terms of like conferences for in the States, I don't think we've submitted anywhere.
We haven't submitted anywhere. If anybody's interested, I'm probably willing to.
Yeah, if you want to pay for travel.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like,
sunny and warm, please.
Not to get off on a tangent, but I feel like international conferences do we were talking about this. They do such a bang up job in terms of hospitality and rewarding speakers. And then, it's not always the case, we'll say, to be gentle with some of the stateside conferences.
Oh man, I can throw some people under the bus if you want.
No, not asking for that. But just general, like it's not quite what it should be.
Yeah, the guys from the You Shot the Sheriff conference were amazing.
Yeah,
and it made me feel so bad for when people come to town, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to leave. I'll tell you what, man, you come to town, I will get off my couch and come see you in DC if you come visit, because we had such a good time with like the locals were amazing and took us to great places to eat and the drinks. And yeah, it was just, we were totally taken care of. The BrewCon guys have always done that. I mean, everybody overseas is always taking amazing care of me.
Luis put a lot of effort into all of that.
Yeah, he was amazing.
So
yeah, I can't thank him enough. I had an amazing time. Found Jesus.
Literally
changed your life. Awesome.
Yeah, no, it was a great time.
Cool. Yeah, we'll keep us posted, obviously, right? Because I think there will be a lot more interest. I mean, I know that there's, yeah.
I mean, we can do a tiny spoiler. Like, we really want to add like Azure or Google Cloud, and maybe if we can get some initial functionality of that going, that's definitely, I think, talk worthy. Not that, I mean, you can give a talk more than once. I'm not one of those people that feel like I can only give a talk once. Especially, I don't know if this one got recorded. So, especially if there's no recording, I definitely don't feel bad about giving a talk more than once.
Yeah.
But I think as we add some more functionality, ideally people find it useful, and that spawns new interesting features to add or modules to add. But yeah, let's play it by ear.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, Google Cloud and Azure would be huge.
Yeah, it'd be a good excuse to learn it. I mean, same thing. Like you're reading all these AWS docs. I'm like, oh man, I had to go through every service, right? Yeah. I'm like, I had no idea that it did all these different things, right? You have all the Alexa modules and things where you can send it text or translate modules, and it has all sorts of really neat stuff to do.
You were finding in a test lab, wink. I don't know which eye should I wink with. You were finding email addresses and like URLs and phone numbers.
Oh yeah, for like doing the SNS,
just listing like people. How to notify them.
Yeah, like the config and SNS modules. You can find endpoints, emails, phone numbers.
Yeah, I remember seeing you with emails and phone numbers. Pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you've got to write a tool to do things, you're forced to actually learn what the service is and does, and right, and then you get to figure out how to make it do stuff they didn't anticipate, or just how can I leverage that for whatever.
Well, I mean, this is a really good example of the whole path into security way that we were talking about at the very beginning. Like, to kind of bring things back around is, hey, you're trying to automate something, but the only real requirement is understanding what it is that you want to automate first, and then building it, providing it as a tool, and then making it better or releasing it. And that, like, the whole feedback loop is there, right?
Yeah.
The more that we do that, and the more that we see other people do that, I mean, that's the way that you get into security, right? If you're passionate about it, that's what you end up doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'll use it no matter what. So if other people find value in it, that's definitely like a super big bonus. I mean, I wrote it because I needed it for work. Yeah. So, and obviously we put a lot of hours into refining it and making it something that ideally is usable and stable and functional. But in the end, I'll use it no matter where I go, just to do things.
Cool.
Any other questions? Any other questions from the?
No, there was a statement from Sean just saying, like he's found same thing we talked about, finding impactful bugs and demonstrating it, and that helps get some traction. So
yeah,
within an org. But besides that, I think I think that's make our Slack public, which we might have to do, and then just moderate we have a Slack for AppSec, but we haven't made it public. So
getting on there the day of is probably difficult then.
Yes. Yeah. So we should make that easier. Totally.
Yeah, we'll take that as a note from here, as we'll post the public Slack on the website, right, Ken? And
yeah, we can just do that. I think if people start being jerks, we'll just kick them out. Pretty easy. So
seems fun.
Sweet.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, we've been going for a while, but any final thoughts, Chris, on life, liberty, Jesus, InfoSec, whatever have you?
I'll plug that I have I'm doing a keynote at B-Sides Cleveland
Nice.
And it's going to be very much out of my comfort zone. And if you're in the area, you should totally come. If not, I hope it's recorded.
Why do I feel like, Seth, didn't Kevin Cody say he was going to be at B-Sides Cleveland?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll reach out to him and let him know Chris is going to be there, so you guys can link up. He was on the podcast.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I guess that's my plug of like I'm getting out of my comfort zone and giving, it's not Metasploit and shells. It's some other stuff.
Life stuff.
It's life stuff, right? So
which a lot of people need. I mean, a lot of people need some of that.
I hope it's useful. Like the quick tidbit would be the talk is like InfoSec and happiness, and I had a bout of depression about 2 years ago, and so it's about a lot of the getting through that, but also I just put my hacker hat on some of this metaphysical stuff, right? And just started saying, okay, I like to make things do things they're not supposed to. Can I do that with this metaphysical stuff? And the talk is a bit about that, and just undocumented functions of the universe, or cheat codes to life, or however you want to look at it. And so hopefully useful to people.
I think it will be, because for all the reasons we've talked about on this podcast, we've talked about tonight, and many more, there definitely is like this there's I don't know, it definitely is prevalent in tech in general, but security is, especially, where there's those ups and downs, and people could hear a real story and connect and figure out how to maybe improve their situation. So I definitely think it'll be useful.
I hope so. Yeah. I'm going to talk a lot about how understanding how you feel sometimes, or is a choice in some cases, right? And I choose, you can choose to be one of those people that wants to be offended by everything, or you can choose to be one of those people that sees the good in things. Right. Those are choices you make. So
yeah.
Cool. Hopefully good.
I hope it's recorded, because I'd be interested.
It's supposed to be.
I don't think I'm going to make it to Cleveland.
It's supposed to be. If it's not, I'll have to record it, assuming I don't get burned at the stake afterwards or something. But there's this. There's like two posters at Facebook. One was, "What would you do if you weren't afraid?" And then the other one, that's one of the ones I really liked. And the other one that I really liked was they had this poster that said, you can Google it. It said, "Nothing at Facebook is anyone else's problem," which is amazing, right? So there, everyone was allowed to do a diff, right? If you could do a diff to fix a problem, man, go for it. And how I think about that is like a lot of times I think we wait on other people to say or do something. And everyone's busy, or everyone's scared to do that. So like, I'm just trying to get out there and, give what happened to me was, like we talked about when we first started, like my path is unique to Chris, and it's, may not work for you, but some of the experiences I had, or some of the things I've learned, may overlap and be useful to people, and hopefully they will be. Cool.
Hope they stream it. Hope they or record it, rather.
Yeah. I think I'm almost sure that they do. Like I said, maybe we'll just record a dry run with you or something, just so I have a copy.
Well, I'll definitely, at the very least, update in the description of this video when we have a link to provide. And definitely, At least we'll make sure that that's out there. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. I mean, otherwise, thanks for having me on. It was super fun.
Yeah. I realized, because I know you, I didn't give you a proper intro in the beginning.
Oh.
I really sucked at that. I apologize. Like, I think, to be fair, I think people know who you are, but
I mean, we've been giving talks for 4 or 5 years or longer, right? I don't even know I can't remember when the first talk was. So like,
but yeah,
I think we jumped right into background and didn't actually talk about what you're doing now, Chris.
I mean, we can.
People should get it from context, though.
Yeah, I should by now in the conversation probably have realized. But, my apologies on that. I totally skipped over that. Realized it halfway.
It's not very often you get to get on a podcast and you're like familiar with the people that you're talking about. Because I've known you and Seth for a long time, and we're not like having that weird, first date moment where you're trying to put like a good show up, like we all know dirt on each other, so we can just roll right into it and have fun. So.
Time goes by fast.
Yeah, sure, man. Awesome.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're interested, we'd love to have you on again sometime in the future, right? Just as you're doing other stuff, or if you want to talk about
I mean, I would love a follow-up regarding your keynote.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
After
yeah, it's about a month out. So yeah, we can do something in July or August.
A few months. That'll work. So.
Yeah, love to. I mean, I don't hate all things InfoSec anymore. So I actually am enjoying like talking to people and leaving the house and talking about computer stuff again. So
that's a good place to be in.
Yeah, it's a lot better place to be in.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Good deal. Well, thanks everybody for joining us tonight. Right. Obviously, we'll get this ripped and put up on the site as well. We'll put some updates up on it. We need to make that a little bit more dynamic, but me and Ken are working on it. Ken, any final thoughts for tonight?
I was just going to mention we have some. I have one guest that's upcoming that is sort of going to be a pretty big surprise. I'm excited. I want to confirm and lock it in, and then announce it. Ken Toller's coming on. So we're working on our list of folks. We're going to work on Slack. This is like the 17th time we've been told to do it, so we'll figure that out. And then in terms of Chris, his Twitter handle is already in the video, but it's @CardinalOwnage. And your blog is cardinalownage.attackresearch.com if you want to see any of the articles that he's put out. And again, he'll be keynoting at B-Sides Cleveland. So we appreciate you coming over.
I'll say I also have open DMs, so if I'm not following you, you should be able to send me a message, and I'm usually fairly responsive. Unless you're a bot. Or I think you're a bot.
Yeah.
Then you get the ban hammer.
Just ignore.
Cool. All right. Thanks everybody for joining. We'll talk soon.
Bye. Thanks.